All right, let's go. I have a plaintiff, Mr. Decker, who says he bought a car from the defendant, Ms. Vargas, and it blew up 2 days later. You're suing for $5,000, the maximum in small claims. Is that correct, Mr. Decker?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. I paid her $4,500 for a 2012 Honda Accord, and the engine seized up less than 48 hours after I drove it off her lot.
Her lot? She doesn't have a lot. She's a private seller. You went to her house and bought a used car. Let's be accurate. Ms. Vargas, you sold him a car for $4,500?
Yes, ma'am. I sold him the car, but he is exaggerating. He knew exactly what he was buying. It was a 10-year-old car with over 100,000 miles. I was completely honest about its condition.
You were honest. That's a statement. Let's see if it holds up. Mr. Decker, what exactly did she say about the car's condition when you met her?
She told me it was her daily driver. She said, and I quote, "This car has been great for me. I've never had a single mechanical issue with it. It's perfect for a first-time buyer."
Those were her words, perfect for a first-time buyer. And you believed her.
Yes, ma'am, I did. She seemed honest. We met at her house. Her kids were there. It felt like a normal, trustworthy family transaction. She even showed me a folder of old maintenance receipts.
I did show him the receipts. I have nothing to hide. The car had regular oil changes. I even put new tires on it 6 months prior. The engine was fine when he took it.
The engine was fine when he took it, and yet 48 hours later, it seized up. That's a pretty catastrophic failure. It doesn't just happen from someone driving it badly for 2 days. So what happened? What did your mechanic tell you, Mr. Decker?
My mechanic, he's been working on Hondas for 30 years. He said the engine had been run with low oil for a long time. He said the internal damage was extensive and pre-existing. It was just a matter of time before it gave out. He said there was metal shavings in the oil pan.
Pre-existing. So you're telling me that Ms. Vargas, who claims she drove this car daily, had no idea the oil was low and that the engine was on its last legs?
I had no idea. I checked the oil myself. I maintained it. I think he drove it hard, maybe didn't check the oil after he bought it, and it just happened. He's a young guy. Maybe he was revving it, trying to show off.
Show off? I drove it from her house to my apartment and then the next day to work and back. That's it. Maybe 60 miles total. I wasn't racing it. I'm trying to get to my job, not the racetrack.
All right, let's get to the timeline. What day did you buy this car, Mr. Decker?
It was a Saturday, October 12th. I saw the ad on Facebook Marketplace, messaged her that morning, and went to see it that afternoon. We made the deal, and I drove it home.
And when did it break down?
Monday morning, October 14th. I was driving to work on the highway, and I heard a loud knocking noise. It got really loud really fast, and then the car just shut off. I had to coast to the shoulder.
So you bought it Saturday, drove it home, presumably didn't drive it Sunday, and then Monday morning it dies. Ms. Vargas, do you dispute that timeline?
No, ma'am. That's the timeline. But I had driven it to work the Friday before I sold it to him. It was running fine. I just don't see how it could go from fine to seized in 2 days unless something happened.
It can go from fine to seized if there's a pre-existing problem that you knew about. Now, I'm looking at a text message here, Mr. Decker. You submitted this as evidence. It's a conversation between you and Ms. Vargas dated October 13th, the day after the sale. Why are you texting her the day after you bought the car?
I was looking over the car in my parking lot, and I noticed a small puddle of oil under it. I texted her just to ask if it ever leaked oil. I was concerned.
Let's read that text. I'm going to read it. Mr. Decker says, "Hey, just noticed a small oil spot under the car. Is that normal?" And Ms. Vargas replies, "Oh yeah, it does that sometimes. It's just a little seep from the valve cover gasket. Nothing major. Just keep an eye on the oil level." Is that accurate, Ms. Vargas?
Yes, ma'am. It had a small leak. It was minor. I told him about it. I mentioned it to him when he bought it.
You told him about it? You just said earlier the car had no mechanical issues. You said it was perfect. You just testified under oath that you told him there were no issues. Now you're telling me you told him about an oil leak.
Well, it was so small, I didn't consider it an issue. It was just a little thing. Old cars have that. I didn't think it was a big deal.
You didn't think it was a big deal. You also told him to keep an eye on the oil level. That's the most important part of that text, Ms. Vargas. You knew the car was leaking oil. You knew enough to tell him to monitor it. Did you check the oil level before you sold it to him?
I had checked it maybe a week before. It was fine.
A week before. So you're selling a car with a known oil leak, and you don't check the oil the day you sell it to make sure it's full. You just hand the keys over to a 28-year-old kid and say, "It's perfect." Mr. Decker, did you check the oil when you bought it?
Honestly, ma'am, no. I trusted her. She seemed so sure the car was in great shape. She showed me the receipts. I took her word for it. I didn't think I needed to pop the hood with her standing right there.
You bought a used car without checking the oil. You took a stranger's word for it. That's not a smart thing to do, but that doesn't excuse her if she misrepresented the condition. Now, did you check the oil after you saw the puddle, after she texted you to keep an eye on it?
I did, ma'am. On Sunday afternoon, the dipstick was almost dry. I went and bought a couple quarts of oil and filled it up. I texted her again. I told her I had to add 2 quarts.
You added 2 quarts, and then the next morning the engine seized. Did you tell her that?
Yes, ma'am. I texted her from the side of the road. I said the engine just blew. She replied and said it wasn't her problem.
It's not my problem. It's a used car, as is. He had it for 2 days. For all I know, he didn't put the oil in correctly, or he drove it with the oil light on. He could have made it worse.
Let's go back to the text you sent him on October 13th. Just keep an eye on the oil level. Why would you tell him to keep an eye on it if it was just a minor seep? How long had you been adding oil to this car?
I added a quart maybe every other month. It wasn't a big deal. I was used to it. It was just part of owning the car.
You added oil every other month? That's not a minor seep, Ms. Vargas. That's a significant consumption or leak. And you didn't think that was relevant to disclose to a first-time car buyer? You didn't think that was a mechanical issue?
I told him about it when he texted me. I was honest then. He bought the car on Saturday. He could have walked away when he saw the puddle on Sunday. He didn't. He chose to keep it.
He chose to keep it because you told him it was nothing major. You minimized it. You gave him bad information. Now, Mr. Decker, what did your mechanic say the cause of the failure was exactly?
He said the engine was starved of oil over a long period. He said the connecting rod bearings were completely worn out, which caused the rod to break and go through the engine block. He showed me the hole in the block, ma'am. He said this didn't happen from driving it for 60 miles. This was months, maybe years of running it low on oil.
That's a very specific diagnosis. I have a written estimate here from A1 Auto Repair. It says catastrophic engine failure due to oil starvation. Pre-existing condition requires complete engine replacement. The estimate is for $4,800. Ms. Vargas, did you have any maintenance records showing the oil was checked or changed recently?
I have the folder I showed him. It has a receipt for an oil change from 6 months before the sale.
6 months, and you added a quart every other month. So in 6 months, you would have added 3 quarts of oil. Do you know how much oil a Honda Accord takes? About 4.5 quarts. So if you added 3 quarts, that means you were replacing more than half the oil capacity over 6 months. The engine was consuming or losing oil at a high rate. You knew that.
I didn't think of it like that. It was an old car. I added oil. I thought it was normal.
You thought it was normal. You also thought it was okay to tell a buyer that the car was perfect and had no issues. This is why we have courts, Ms. Vargas. This is why. Now, Mr. Decker, you have a witness. Is your mechanic here today?
Yes, ma'am, he is. That's him sitting in the back. He agreed to come and explain what he found.
All right, call him up. But I'm going to warn you, if he's just here to repeat what's in the estimate, I don't need to hear it. I can read.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Robert Harris. I've owned A1 Auto for 35 years. I'm the one who looked at Mr. Decker's car.
Mr. Harris, in your professional opinion, did the engine failure in this vehicle happen because of something Mr. Decker did in the 2 days he owned it, or was it a pre-existing condition?
Pre-existing, without a doubt. The number one cause of this type of failure is running the engine with low oil for an extended period. When I drained what little oil was left, it was full of metal. The bearings were gone. That doesn't happen in 2 days. That happens over months.
Could the fact that Mr. Decker added 2 quarts of oil the day before have caused this? Could he have overfilled it?
No, ma'am. Overfilling could cause other problems, but not a thrown rod through the block. The damage was done long before he put that oil in. The added oil was just a temporary Band-Aid on a wound that was already fatal.
Ms. Vargas, do you have any questions for this mechanic?
How do you know he didn't run it without oil? The car had a light on the dashboard. If he ignored it, that's on him.
Ma'am, the damage to the bearings is uniform and extensive. It shows a pattern of chronic low oil, not a sudden event. If he had run it for 1 day with no oil, the damage would look different. This engine was worn out from the inside over a long period. I'd be surprised if the check engine light or the oil light wasn't already on intermittently before he even bought it.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. You can step down. That's very compelling testimony. Now, Ms. Vargas, you sold a car that your own mechanic, had you taken it to one, would have told you was a ticking time bomb. You told the plaintiff it was in perfect condition. You then, after the sale, advised him to monitor the oil, but you downplayed the severity. I'm having a hard time finding any credibility in your story.
But ma'am, I didn't know. I'm not a mechanic. I just drove the car. I didn't think it was that serious.
You didn't think it was serious that you had to add a quart of oil every other month? You didn't think that was a red flag? And when someone asked you if it had any issues, you said, perfect. That's a misrepresentation. In small claims court, if you make a false representation that induces someone to buy something, you're responsible for the damages, especially when you knew or should have known the truth.
Ma'am, I have another text. It's from her. After my engine blew, I was upset. I might have said some things. But she sent me a text that said, look, I knew the car was burning oil, but it ran fine for me. It's not my fault you didn't check it.
Let me see that. I have it here as Exhibit D, Ms. Vargas. Did you send this text? It says, I knew the car was burning oil, but it ran fine for me.
Yes, but I meant it was just using a little oil. I didn't mean it was about to blow up. There's a difference.
There's a difference between a little oil and a quart every other month. And the fact that you admit in a text that you knew it was burning oil, yet you told him it had no issues, is the nail in the coffin here. You intentionally hid a known defect. You can't sell a car as is if you actively conceal a material fact. That's fraud.
I wasn't trying to commit fraud. I just needed to sell the car. I have 2 kids. I needed the money. I didn't think it was that bad.
You didn't think it was that bad. You know what? That's the problem. You prioritized your need to get rid of a problem car over being honest with a buyer. You passed your problem on to him. That's not how it works. Mr. Decker, you paid $4,500 for the car. You have an estimate to fix it for $4,800. You're suing for $5,000. What's the extra $200 for?
The towing bill, ma'am, it cost $200 to tow it from the highway to my mechanic's shop.
Do you have a receipt for that?
Yes, ma'am, right here.
All right. I'm going to make a decision. The estimate for the engine replacement is $4,800. The tow is $200. That's $5,000. You sold a car you knew had a significant mechanical defect. You told the plaintiff it was perfect. You induced him to buy it. You are responsible for the cost to make him whole. I'm not giving him the money for a new car. I'm giving him the cost to fix the car you sold him under false pretenses. Judgment for the plaintiff, Michael Decker, in the amount of $5,000.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it.
You can thank your mechanic for his honest testimony. Ms. Vargas, next time you sell a car, you tell the truth. You say, it burns oil, keep an eye on it. You let the buyer make an informed decision. That's what an honest person does. We're done here.
But ma'am, I don't have $5,000.
That's a problem for another day. Judgment is final. Goodbye.